So I'm going to be rounding up a number of additional folks who are enjoying the break, and that's okay. I know I'm eager, as I'm sure all of you are, to head out for some cocktails following the presentations today. I have to begin with a formal apology. I actually missed the majority of the conference because I had been eating steak and enjoying the admiring the beautiful people of Brazil. In all seriousness, this is true. However, I've actually been on a whirlwind tour all around Brazil, meeting with our prospects, our clients, press, etc. But I've heard that the sessions so far have been absolutely fantastic. A lot of really good, rich insights that have been shared, and some really good questions. And I expect some really good questions today from all of you. As more and more people find their way into the room, I want to kind of set the stage for what we're going to do in this final hour as part of this wonderful conference that Arizona has brought to Brazil. And really what I'm going to be doing is sharing a point of view on how brands are starting to, already today and soon will be, continuing to facilitate world-class customer experiences that transcend channels and media. And so more to come in that regard. Before we begin, how many of you have heard about Axiom? How many of you know Axiom? I see Wikipedia is right. So if you wiki Axiom, you'll see that we are the biggest company you've never heard of before. And there's a reason for that. One of the reasons happens to be because we don't need to take credit. We're okay with our clients taking all the credit. And there's a lot of truth there. We're behind 350 of the largest marketing ecosystems in the world. And you'll get an idea a little bit more about what we do. But my name is Barry Stamos. I'm the global practice leader for media strategy at Axiom. I think I have one of the hardest jobs in the company because I, like you, struggle to, on a day-to-day, keep up with the ever-changing, ever-evolving global media and marketing ecosystem. And I think you would agree that things are changing so rapidly that making sense of the complexity is true genius. And I think we're going to see some really good examples today of how businesses are doing just that. So for the session, what I want to do is I want to begin with a shared vision. I think it's very important that we all have a common frame of reference as we start to begin to really discuss some of the most important and vital changes that are occurring in marketing today. I'm going to then, in the shared vision, just kind of provide some context to what the marketing revolution has already, what has already occurred and what soon will be. And then we're going to see that really come to life through the customer experience. So a day in the life, we're going to walk through what a customer's experience could be, should be, if brands were doing everything they could, online, offline, integrating the two, to really begin to facilitate a truly differentiated customer experience. So I think, oftentimes at conferences when I'm sitting in your seat or if I'm up here on stage, at times there's a lot of great ideas that are very high level, strategy, but you don't go deep enough, and it's kind of like, I get back to the office and I say, wow, I was really inspired by that presentation, but how do I actually begin to put that to work? And I know that some of the sessions today really addressed some really key strategies, tactics, both operationally and strategically, that you hopefully can begin to leverage. But I'm hoping to share some very good takeaways with you all, and then bring it into the context of the real world. So what brands are beginning to operationalize these opportunities today? And what can we learn from them? And how can you leverage some of the quick wins, some of the successes that they've already achieved? We're then going to go into a very quick roadmap to success. And I'm just going to highlight a couple of points that I think are very important as you begin to advance in the maturity of how you leverage multiple channels and media. I'm specifically going to try to talk a little bit about metrics that matter most. So, for example, one of the things that I was just out at a major conference in Austin, Texas, called South by Southwest. I'm not sure how many of you have heard of that. How many of you have been there? It's a good event to go to if you haven't checked it out already. It really pulls in a who's who crowd. But one of the questions that was really top of mind was, how do you truly measure social media? And I watched as so many people struggled and or had so many different answers, and I want to try to synthesize some of the things I heard and see if that makes sense with all of you, and maybe that's something that we can discuss more as well. And then finally, the business case, so the metrics that matter, how you can check those boxes, and hopefully we're going to have an interactive conversation, and maybe we can even have them bring in some caipirinhas while we do our Q&A. Can we show of hands how many people would like that? Arizona, do we get the count? We're taking orders in advance. All right. All right. So let's begin with a shared vision. So, hey, no news to any of you, unless you've been sleeping and hibernating, right? We're living in a very, very interesting time. But it's important, if we're going to predict the future and truly understand the power of the revolution that's occurring, to have some kind of historical context. So if we look at this slide, what's very apparent is that, you know, it took hundreds of years for the first few channels to come to life. And then literally in the last decade, we've had an incredible explosion of new channels. I mean, Facebook is a channel, right? People now are spending more time online than watching television. And we heard from the last presenter the duration that they're spending via Facebook, and the fact that they're addicted to 3 screens, right? TV, laptop, notebook, netbook, iPad, and their smartphone. How many of you checked email first thing when you woke up this morning? Yeah, I'm an addict, right? I mean, right now they had to pass laws in the United States so people wouldn't be texting and checking email while driving, right? Too many car accidents. So we'll see that play out, by the way, in a day in the life of a customer example. But the important thing here, right, is not the fact that there's this unbelievable radical change that's occurring. What's important is the following. People like you and me that truly started to understand new channels like television, like radio, like print, built businesses, built brands. Those brands became empires. Those are the logos that you see and that we idolize today. You right now are in a position to do the exact same thing. You look at these new channels. Who of you are going to master these new channels, right? Are you going to do that for your business? Are you going to do that for your brand? It's really, the opportunity is tremendous, and it's really exciting if you think about that potential. And that's why we've all come together today, right? To really understand what's happening, how can we predict, but most importantly, how can we influence behavior, consumer behavior, because clearly the consumer is at the heart, or should be, of everything that we do. So the question that I ask you is, are you surfing this wave, right? Are you behind in its wake? You know, sink or swim. It's really an innovate or die, and I'll get more to that. So clearly there's a wave of change, and it's changing the game in terms of how brands interact with consumers, or more importantly, how consumers interact with brands, right? It's how you find out about products, services, news, and events, and it's having this cyclone effect that's absolutely disrupting everything that we previously thought we knew as marketers in terms of how to generate awareness, consideration, right? Purchases, how we upsell and cross-sell, how we even recruit for HR, how we source ideas for product development. It's really, really, truly a different time, and it's time we started making sense of what's going on. So one way that we can start to make sense, and what the market leaders are doing in terms of framing up many of the changes that are occurring today in the new and emerging media ecosystem, is recognizing that there are essentially 4 quadrants. Paid media, right? We all are very familiar with paid media, especially those of us that have budgets to spend, right? This is where we place our bets with TV and radio and print and display advertising. Owned media. These are assets that our brands and businesses have. This is the media that we can control. This is how we access our addressable market day to day without having to pay to play the media providers, the buyers. So this would be our website. This would be our email. This would be our Facebook page. This would be our Twitter account. This is how we can build relationships more cost effectively. And then, of course, there's earned media. This is how we leverage our owned media and or paid media to gain access to others very cost effectively. This is when you forward an email to a friend. This is when someone retweets. This is when we post a video that goes viral on YouTube. This is PR, but applied in scale, amplified, surround sound. And then, of course, there's sold media, which is something that brands are talking about, but not many are doing a lot with today, but soon will be. This is how we monetize our assets, our paid media assets. I'm sorry, our owned media assets and our earned media assets. So we have a website that generates X volume of traffic, unique site visitors every day. Should we be making money from that? We have huge volumes of consumers that are pouring through our customer service functions. Should we be making money from that, right? How do we begin to make money and start to strategically reallocate our spending so that it really plays to our advantage? So hopefully everybody gets and appreciates that to date we've been very dependent on paying for media to engage in a conversation with our consumers. And today we have a truly remarkable opportunity to reduce that dependency and really better balance out how we go about reaching and engaging in a continuous conversation, a compelling conversation, where there's truly more of a balanced value exchange. So who's doing it? Let's start with paid media. So Ford spends 25% of their marketing budget on digital, right? They're seeing success with digital. Why? Everything you do online is trackable and measurable. Results are undeniable, right? So truly you can be accountable, and because of that it makes a lot of sense to start pushing more money into things that ultimately are going to make you look good and will be more predictable as you move forward in time. Earned media. So Burger King. How many of you are familiar with Burger King? Okay, good. So Burger King now has recognized that through a simple Facebook app, they can get 32 million media mentions, impressions. So they're measuring media the same way on Facebook as they would in any other channel, right? Through their ability to reach consumers. If we look at owned media, so Dell, $3 billion to date through Twitter. They use Twitter as an opportunity, like many other businesses use email, to promote products and services and monetize, if you will, those consumer relationships through that channel. And then finally, sold media. What we're seeing is that many businesses are recognizing that there might be an opportunity for them to create, if you will, a media channel. So build a new business, a new microsite, just so they have an opportunity to begin to control the conversations that are occurring there so that they're not necessarily the front of the line, so to speak, right? And you're seeing some of the examples that are happening there. So bottom line, net, what's the deal? Well, the deal is that the companies that truly understand the changes that are occurring today and are harnessing them can gain a competitive advantage. And those companies that don't, well, we're seeing what's happening. So where is your business on this chart in lieu of your competitors? Apple just recently had a $222 billion valuation, right? You know, you think about Encyclopedia Britannica and what Wikipedia did to completely disrupt their business. The same is true with Netflix and Blockbuster, and there's a whole host of brands that could literally be on either the wall of fame or the wall of shame. The important thing is that you appreciate and recognize that there are leaders and there are laggers, and you definitely don't want to be on the back of the line, right? We obviously want to be in the front. So we need to get engaged in the space race. So we're all racing to be the first to master these channels individually and collectively. The challenge is really not a very clear roadmap. So we're running, but without perfect direction. We may see a bridge, and we'll try to cross it. We may see a light at the end of the tunnel. But it's really it's challenging being on your own in this race. And so it's vitally important that you think about this perspective of completing and not competing, really making use of the teams within your organization and also the partner network that surrounds you, and that you're really trusting those that are helping you advance with confidence. So I'm going to walk through an example of how to think about the new marketing and media ecosystem and how many of the marketing leaders, and I've personally had an opportunity to work with over 100 of the Fortune 500 on their strategies. So I can say that this strategy is absolutely what the market leaders are thinking and starting to do. And so I'm not saying so should you. I think it's very important that you don't just follow the herd. You know your business better than anybody else, right? So you have to balance what's best in class with what's best for you. But with that said, I think there's some very smart and logical thinking that applies to this framework. So follow me here on this as I describe what we're looking at here. So right here on the left axis we have customer value and that increasing, and we have time. So all of us want higher lifetime customer value. The current curve is, let's say, the current state of customers today with your business, and obviously the desired state is higher strategic impact in terms of customer value and a longer duration with those customers. So you have less attrition, less churn. Makes sense. We all get it. That's what we're all in the business to do, to help to support in marketing in terms of acquiring more customers, growing those relationships, and keeping them for longer. Down here, we just have a simple sample representation of the different channels that ultimately your consumers will interact with as they blur the lines, sometimes using multiple channels simultaneously. Mention the three screens. And the circles represent moments that matter. Your opportunity to enchant consumer relationships. When there's less noise in the marketplace, where you truly can deliver your difference. I like to say that it takes one touch to make or break a relationship. Should you send that email? If you send that email, are you ultimately decreasing the lifetime customer value? Are you doing something to get an immediate sale that might have a long-term adverse or negative implication? These are things to consider. So let's look at this, though. So if we look at the customer life cycle, what are the major events in consumers' lives where your brand is going to be timely, relevant, and ultimately you'll be in a position to add value? So depending on your business, it could be I move into a new area, so all of a sudden now I become an appropriate prospect for your product or service. It could be that, and this is true, I now become a family. I just had a baby, a beautiful little baby boy, and he's now 6 months old. So I'm now in market for things that I never knew I was in market for before. So anyway, the important thing here is that there are key events that occur in consumers' lives, and you need to have a short list of what those events are where you can be very competitive in lieu of the noise that's occurring in the marketplace. Before, during, and after these events, consumers are going to emit signals. Signals to you that they are entering those key events, and you want to be first to market in messaging to them, so that they're aware and you're aware that you understand what's going on in their lives. These signals can be represented by such things as them doing a search using keywords on search engines, right? Me tweeting that I'm in market for a new television because I just moved. My purchases, transactions. So we all know transactions are a phenomenal signal for what I might be in market in terms of a next purchase. So these all represent signals, and these signals are very diverse, and they're occurring every day across channels, and that's the voice of the customer. They're either speaking through their voice, or they're voting with their actions, or they're voting with their dollars. And are you listening? Are you aggregating and integrating all of those signals based on where they are in the life cycle with your brand so that you can truly begin to develop insights, and not just insights like we have for many, many years as marketers. I'm talking about multi-dimensional insights. I'm talking about knowing what I'm doing online before I came to your website, while I'm on your website. So think about that same session. What's happened in the last minute, the last 10 minutes, the last hour of my life as I'm interfacing online? And equally, if not more important, joining that up with what I've been doing with your brand the last day, the last month, the last year, the last 10 years. truly integrating online and offline so that you have that holistic, systemic perspective of what the customer is experiencing across channels and across media. That is the game. Those that can really master that game are the winners, and those that can't, frankly, I'm sorry, are the losers. And this is what our opportunity is today. So how do we truly begin to leverage our understanding of events, signals, and insights to infuse those into whom we decide to target, how we provide our treatments in terms of creative, copy, messaging, offers, true personalization, true coordination across channels, and ultimately, how do we recalibrate what they do, and equally importantly, don't do, so that we can leverage those learnings to create this continuous learning system so we can ultimately be smarter that very next step, that very next interaction. How many of you right now today can think of a brand that has begun to understand you, begin to learn how you interact with their brand, get smarter through technology? Can you all think of some examples? Yeah, I can too, but guess what? I think about the Fortune 500. It is not often that brands wow me. I'm a consumer and a professional marketer. And I'm pretty let down, quite frankly, by most of my experiences on a day-to-day. Are you too? I think there's a lot of room for improvement, and I think we're the ones that can help to facilitate that. Ultimately, though, our ability to be relevant with this continuous conversation has to be directly linked to the incremental value, both the business and financial impact. And so what metrics matter to your business generally apply to others, but that's going to be very specific to you, and we will talk a little bit more about that at the end of the session here when we get into some digital media, specifically social. The point here is that as consumers are interacting with your brand, and there's lots of different colors to the consumer rainbow, if you will, right, the prism, and so how we create tracks so each consumer can be treated uniquely, differently as they begin to transcend channels across the experience is really where you're going to shine. So to win, there's a new model that's required in this connected world, and it begins with a very simple strategy, and that is not all consumers matter. Right? There's a simple quote here. The top 30% of your customers make 500% of the profit. The bottom 20 consume 400%. Now, obviously, this is different for every sector, market, industry. But the point there is that we're all focused and obsessed oftentimes about acquisition. Are we marketing to and or acquiring the right consumers? How can we attract the most valuable consumers and really begin to target them in this new addressable media landscape? To do that requires recognition. Recognizing me when I just came to your website for the first time as an unknown or anonymous site visitor, right? We all know that there's ways to do that, right? Referring URLs, cookies, but there's a lot bigger opportunity, and we'll see that come to life, really shine in the customer experience that we're about to get into here. The other real key capability is having this logical central nervous system. So consider, if you will, a very basic framework where you have data, and you have insights, and you have engagement. So you're pooling data from lots of different sources, your business, other businesses. Why? So you can have that perspective, that single view. How you leverage that data as fuel to begin to unlock valuable insights is really quintessential. And then how you leverage those insights to truly infuse those into the customer engagement strategy and mapping that across channels, that's where you win. But to do that, this central nervous system, you have to be picking up on the signals that are occurring in the world, both online, offline. And so that becomes a very critical capability. And then finally, some kind of personalization engine, right? A personalization engine or recommendation engine, if you will, that can understand not just based on the wisdom of the crowds or the community, because the community is not me. So take, for example, if I go and buy a movie. I am, based on my movie purchase, likely going to be entered. That transaction is likely going to be entered into a model, applied by analytics, that says that given that I like this movie, there's a high propensity that I'll like this other movie. But what if I go online later that week and give that movie a very poor rating or review? How smart does the brand pick up on that signal and recognize that actually I didn't like that at all, and/or I bought it for somebody else and it's not pertinent to me? You guys, hopefully, based on some of the examples that I'm giving, are starting to understand and appreciate and really value that it's critical that we open up our perspective to the many signals that are happening, and that we're not just observing consumer activity or behavior, that we're actually creating feedback mechanisms that allow consumers to tell us if we're getting it right or we're not in every single interaction. Big opportunity for brands. See that happening with the market leaders. Don't see that happening universally. So the message here should be clear. It's win with the winners. It's going from more of a broadcast approach, right, one-to-many, to truly more one-to-one. This is no surprise to you. You've heard this before. But we're actually going to see it come to life through a good illustration. Before we do that in terms of representing the customer experience, I wanted to just paint a picture of what this new connected model and reality looks like for modern marketers today. So consider, if you will, on the far left side, your brand, and a lot of the data that you have today and insights on what's happening in your business. And then consider, if you will, the addressable media landscape. So consider, if you will, consumers and how they're interacting with online display, so banner advertising, TV, call center, mobile, omni-channel, omni-media. How can you responsibly begin to understand, predict, influence behavior? Well, it's critical that you begin to work with many of these publishers, many of these partners, and begin to share data, again, responsibly. So there are many laws, and they change based on where you are in the world. But ultimately, consumers, too, have some opinions on what data you should have access to and how you should use that. And there's no doubt we're going to see tremendous changes in legislation in terms of privacy. So the landscape will continue to change. Facebook right now is a wild card in terms of what they choose to open up and/or what they're going to continue to close down. But the key here is recognizing that the opportunity to create a safe haven environment where you leverage companies like Axiom and others to serve as a kind of a broker, if you will, a bridge where data can be sourced from lots of different places and insights can be leveraged, where we're sharing, we're completing, we're not competing, to enrich the view of the customer and what data can be leveraged to be more smart and intelligent in customers' experiences. So let's meet Isabella Martins. So Isabella, I almost just fell. That would have easily made the YouTube video. And I would have had probably, maybe, I don't know, 10,000, 20,000 views, maybe more. How many of you guys participate in LinkedIn's groups actively? Okay, so a few. All right, how many of you have posted a video to YouTube? How many of you have commented on a business on Facebook? Okay, so we're all pretty engaged. So maybe the number, the total count, if I fell off the stage, might be more like 50,000, 100,000. That would be earned media, by the way. Okay, I'm not going to do that, at least not right now. We'll see. We'll see. So Isabella Martins. So here's what's interesting about Isabella. It's not so much that she's going to be in market for some new insurance. What's most relevant about Isabella Martins is that her lifetime customer value, if we look at it from just a personal perspective, it's around $25K. If we look at her household projected lifetime value, it's around $140K. But Isabella is a blogger, and she's a very influential one. So when we think about how we're going to market and who we're targeting and the cost that we're willing to spend to acquire her and/or retain her, her value, given social media, is substantially higher. How many of you right now are using social influence for your lifetime value modeling? Exactly. So future is coming, right? Opportunity to get in action. Very, very important. Oh, and by the way, one little subtle tip. So Freddie, this little dude, Freddie just got in a car accident, so her rates just went up, and it's important to the story. She's not happy with Freddie. Freddie's grounded. So Isabella's expectations. I want you to be relevant when you talk to me. Only talk to me about the products or services that are important based on what you know about where I am in my life. Value me as a customer. I'll give you a moment to read these. I think it's just important just to get in the state of mind of her experience, because we're going to go through this experience as if we were truly her. If I drank the Brazilian coffee on a regular basis, I'm convinced I would be 3 times more productive. I think that this is something, if I have a takeaway, I'm immediately distributing it to my teams, in truth. Okay, so clearly, these are the needs, these are the expectations of consumers today, right? Convenience, access to information on demand, right? Truly, brands are naked today. I can in 1 minute like a business. I can tweet that I've had a negative experience, or I can upload a YouTube video showcasing how wretched their customer service is, or how long the line is when I exit the airport here. I waited for 2 hours just to get to customs. I know, we're working on it. We're working on it. I know. So anyway, the point here is that she has high expectations, and through her day in the life, she is going to interact in this scenario. She's going to interact with many different brands across many different channels that are all courting her. All of them want her business. But I want you to just appreciate what she's experiencing as she transcends these channels, as she goes through the buying process. Awareness, interest, consideration, evaluation, comparison, validation, ultimately that transaction, that conversion. So this is truly representing the day in the life for Isabella. And please understand, this is just an example of what brands can and should be doing. And many of these things are already happening. Certain things I have liberty to present today, other things I don't. So we'll let you understand that for what it is. But we're ultimately going to see how they win her business. So she has a wake-up call, her alarm goes off, and it's a radio ad talking about how she could save money on her car insurance. Well, this is relevant because, as I shared, Freddie got in a car accident and her rates just increased. Okay. Now, behind the scenes, there are brands that immediately, because Freddie got in a car accident, have been alerted that she is getting ready to enter into a key event. The event was the accident. So they're listening right now for signals and/or recognizing that if they can get to her first, they're probably going to have a key advantage. So in this example, they're doing very relevant, targeted advertising based on some of the information they have about her being in market. She gets a cup of coffee and gets her mail. And in the mail, she sees that there is a promotion to save money on car insurance. Pretty timely. That promotion includes a QR code. Are we all familiar with QR codes? Quick response codes? That little, little bar, right? Okay, good. So she scans that. She's advanced. She's a blogger. And that generates a like on that brand's Facebook page. Okay, that's pretty cool. That's an example of digital integrating with direct mail, and we're going to see a whole lot more of that in the addressable media landscape. I had a conversation with a reporter yesterday that said, "So what's going to happen? TV, is it going away? Digital, is all the money going to digital?" I said, "No, actually, the money is going to stay in TV. Why?" Well, right now we're talking about interactive television, right? The difference is that now you have an opportunity to leverage TV in a way that you never could or would before because the capability didn't exist. What do I mean by that? So we'll get to the point. In her day in the life experience, she now sits down to watch the news, sees a TV commercial from a insurance company, again talking about how she could save money, and because it's interactive TV on her cable set-top box, she can actually click through to get more information. Now I understand that that's not a capability yet in Brazil, but it's coming very soon. So now if we think about TV, and going back to the point, how incredible is that? I mean, we are finally going to be at a point where we can actually do targeted TV ads based on household information. So there could be or would be unique content, unique creative, unique calls to actions for you and you and you and you, all occurring simultaneously. This makes TV a lot more valuable. And so if we think about that from a bigger perspective, that's what's happening everywhere. Everywhere I go with my mobile phone, I bring the internet with me. Anything and everything you can do online, soon now you can do in the real world offline. It's serving as the bridge, and again, we'll see more examples of that. So the TV ad generates some behavior. She jumps online. She decides, I need to get in action. I should look to see what kind of rates are available to me. I've been a consumer with this one brand for 20 years. It's time I saw what else is out there. So she does a search, and she finds some insurance companies on Yahoo, several of them, but nothing really worthwhile comes up. I forgot to mention one important thing, and this is very, very cool. Do we see right up here in the top right corner? Assumed, observed, partially known, and then known network. So this is just an example of a table that represents the customer image. This is how, as a business or a brand, we see Isabella Martins. So right now, we don't have information about her until right this second, right? We're using assumed information to do our radio buy, our TV buy, but until she actually does a search and emits a direct signal where we can link to her, she's assumed, now she's observed. And we're going to see this play out in terms of partially known, where we actually get some more information on her, known when she actually authenticates or registers, and then finally known network, where we start to understand, appreciate, and value who she cares about in her network and how they influence her purchases. So, friendly advice, she gets confused with what she sees online and decides to reach out to her community. And so she posts on Facebook that she'd like to know who she should be considering for quotes. Her friends reply quickly. She now has some brands that she can do, that she can follow up with to do some competitive comparison. While she's considering actually filling out a form online for a quote, she looks at their ratings and their reviews. What is the voice of the customer saying about these businesses? How many of you have ratings and reviews for your brand, for your products, for your services, for your news, for your events? I see far too many brands when I go on their websites missing the voice of the customer completely. All of the content, all of the creative, even if there's good video, it's all the companies. It's not the voice of the consumer. And so it becomes less relevant, it becomes less credible, it becomes less authentic. Therein lies a key takeaway, and I didn't see anybody write anything down. I'm telling you that if you have an opportunity to add ratings and reviews or the voice of the customer to your website, to your blog, to your emails, you will see engagement increase very substantially because they'll have an opportunity to let others know what is valuable and what is, it can help steer them in the right direction. So she reads the reviews and decides to fill out a quote, and in this case, the company has some information already about her, and so they're able to expedite the sign-up process. She actually, though, in this example, doesn't like the rates that she got. So she's not ready to move forward with the transaction. So she jumps online, wants to pick up the news. How many of you are familiar with banner retargeting? Yes, some. Okay, good. So essentially what happens is when she landed on their website, a cookie was dropped. And now that's going to trigger some media buying. So wherever she goes to certain publisher sites, they're now going to pay a premium so they can reach her. Why? Because she's a lot more qualified. This is a lot smarter than just spending lots of money aimlessly on reaching lots of folks, right? Now they can reach folks that are a lot more relevant to where they exist in the buying process. So she sees relevant ads thanks to banner retargeting. These ads continue as she continues her experience online, and they're doing surround sound, right? They're blocking out and actually owning the experience, because at this point, based on her signals and her behavior, they know that she's in market and that she's going to make a purchase within the next period of time. She goes through to a site based on the banner ad, and she stalls. She doesn't have all the information. She actually doesn't have the VIN number for her car that she'll need in order to finish the experience. So because of that, because of her delay, it prompts a live chat, a live service opportunity for her to click to call so that they can help her complete her transaction. And of course, after she does, there's a wonderful event-triggered automated email that gets sent based on a local agent that's in her geography. And that agent then proceeds to work with her to capture her preferences on what she'd like to insure, not insure. Automatically, there's a recommendation in the back end determining what she would be most likely to purchase in terms of upsell, cross-sell. Later that night, she gets an opportunity to make a payment because she hasn't paid her bill, and she can do that pretty seamlessly via the mobile device. You guys get the picture, right? So the point here is that the customer experience is going to go across lots of different channels. Each step of the way, there's an opportunity for brands to recognize and relate to her, recognize and reward her, as they start to see her come into full picture. And then finally, there's an opportunity for her to share with her friends the deal that she got so that they can generate some earned media that results in new acquisitions. Cool. So I'm going to move through some very quick success stories so that we have ample time for question and answer. So if you have more questions about these, you can absolutely bring it up in the Q&A section. So Google. So Google, even though has had obviously phenomenal success in paid search, was looking to find very valuable, profitable customers globally. And so the key was for them to begin to match up their most profitable customers with what customer data was available in different geographies worldwide. And by creating an ecosystem of different partners that have different data, they were able to find, attract, and convert those that were more profitable. As a result, they could reduce their marketing expenses pretty dramatically, 25%, and increase their revenues by over 100% compounded year-over-year growth. Cool. It's a great example of what we've been talking about in terms of bringing data together from lots of different places, leveraging existing insights in terms of what's been working already with their current assets, and scaling that success. Best Buy worked with a partner called Acuity Mobile and Nokia. Nokia wanted to get a coupon in front of their consumers, but didn't have the registration information. So they worked with Best Buy to offer a promotion where the consumer could enter a short code and receive a $10 coupon that was exclusive to Best Buy. And what's cool about this is that they had a 40% response rate, and of the 40% that responded, 50% redeemed that coupon in store. So again, another good example of how one company is completing the experience, not competing, with other companies in this shared network environment. HP. HP wanted their email program to be more relevant. So they created a preference center, right? How many of you know what preference centers is? You know, of course, we've used them, we've participated in them. So we get to say what information we want to receive from the company, what information we do not. Well, this preference center informed not only their email program, but overall how they engage with consumers. $220 million in incremental revenues annually, $4.5 million in operational expenses reduced, and of course, huge increases in email sign-up rates. Why? Because as a consumer, I get to tell you what I'm interested in receiving and what I'm not. How many of you are looking for ways that you can accelerate the growth of your email contact database? Right? 60% increase in email signups by offering the opportunity to customize the content. Quick win. Acer. So I've been working with Acer Group to help launch the Alive platform. So this is pre-installed in every device, notebooks, netbooks, smartphones. So you have a platform where you can purchase movies, music, games. This gives Acer an opportunity to connect with consumers in a relevant way between device purchases. They're not the first ones to do it, but I'll go to wager that when we start to train the recommendation engine that we're using to power what content gets put in front of whom, when, where, how, this customer experience will be highly differentiated. So look for that to be in full effect 6 months from today. And appreciate that recommendation engines should not just power one channel or one platform, but really personalize an omni-channel relationship. In the interest of time, these slides are pretty heavy. I won't go into detail about the next two, but City is a great example of how really the power of being able to unify data from lots of different sources, create a single view of the customer, and really begin to leverage that in new and meaningful and, more importantly, profitable ways. And GM is another great example of how you not only leverage that single view, but actively deploy programs that truly are integrating marketing channels and media. And what I love about GM is that, like so many companies, like so many of all of you, they have so many projects, programs, initiatives running simultaneously. They actually took the time to take a step back and see the forest from the trees, to really look at the stars in their universe and say, what are our constellations and which ones matter, and how do we narrow the universe of options down to the few that are really going to make a difference for our business? And let's put together an integrated roadmap. Let's prioritize and let's move forward, which really gets to our final section of this presentation, which is how do you rapidly accelerate the success that you're going to be achieving not only in the quarters, but the fiscal year. So where are you in this evolution, in this marketing revolution? Where are you? Are you working on the basics, the fundamentals? Are you establishing a foundation? Are you literally leveraging accelerators and multipliers? Now, this list is not, by the way, my recommendations for you. It is, however, some exercise that you can and arguably should be doing back when you get to the office. What are the things we need to do today? What do we need to start to do so we can truly establish a foundation that will help to facilitate transformation? And how do we operationalize all of that? So it really begins with, from experience, a shared vision. When you get people in the room that are focused on databases, or you get people in the room that are focused on partnership development, or you get the CEO or CMO or CFO in the room, there is no better way to share a compelling vision than to represent what the customer experience is going to look like. I'm not saying exactly like we just did in the example of Isabella Martins, but something like that, where they can appreciate how truly you're going to have those aha moments with your customers, those seducible moments that will wow them, that will lead to a differentiated experience that will impact the value of that relationship. Start with the vision. To build that vision, look at your data. Allow the data to drive your decision making. See what data assets you have today and see how you can begin to apply those in the form of insights, create the business case, execute, and be accountable every step of the way. Sounds easy. It is and it isn't. So ultimately what you want to do is create a roadmap. Right? What are the plays in the playbook that are most important? How do you prioritize those based on value and ease of execution so that you can ultimately identify some quick win opportunities, some pilot programs, and launch those so that they self-fund doing more of the same. The market leaders have roadmaps and playbooks so that they know what their revenue is going to be in a more predictable fashion, so that they can begin to establish a communication infrastructure. So no matter where I am on that life cycle curve, if I start to take a step off the cliff, right, there's a communication that's right there to lift me back up and keep me on my merry way. Business case. I have so many brands that have spent so much money on media to drive traffic. And the problem is not at the top of the funnel. The top of the funnel is like very wide. The problem is that the middle and bottom of the funnel is very, very thin. So if we just look at email, how can you leverage all of the touches, all the interactions that are occurring every day or every month with your brand and or partners so that you can begin to engage them and ultimately convert them? So how can we make that funnel wider? And therein lies so many points of friction. Therein lies so many points of failure. And the key is being able to circle those and put programs, pilot programs, to address them. What is the value of an email today? Truly. I mean, this is an old question, but I see so few brands that truly today have a value of an email address. If you can get permission to have a direct relationship with a consumer, where at any point you could send an email to be in communication, I mean, that is gold. And yet, very few companies are really trying to value the cost. If I can get an email, I don't have to spend as much money with other people trying to reach that same individual. We made that point earlier. But ultimately, how I improve operations is key, and that ends up feeding into how I value an email. I mentioned in the very beginning of the presentation, we talk about social media and measurement. So I know this is on the minds of many of you. The difference between companies that have 100 people right now focused on social media and those that have half a person is their ability to create a business case, a compelling case for social media. So there are 2 tips I'll share, and then I know I've got my 2-minute warning. Thank you. I got my 2-minute warning, and then we can open it up for questions. But first and foremost, there's some basic metrics that matter for social. And there's some emerging metrics that matter. And those are good. Those are informative. I find them very, very interesting. So the number of fans, it's more of an ego thing than it is anything, because it's really, truly ultimately about quality rather than quantity. We talked about the importance of the value of the customer. Who do we want to fan us? Who do we want to friend us, as opposed to just generating as many likes as we possibly can, or followers? But those are all very interesting, and there's a lot of organizations out there that can help you with those. What I want to do is I want to encourage you to look at social just like a C-level executive would look at social. Look at email just like a C-level executive would look at email, and mobile, and interactive television. These may be emerging channels, folks, but this is a game we've been at a very long time. We all have been at a very long time. So consider this. If I get a fan on social media, what's the value? I can do a holdout group to see if they like me on Facebook, does it reduce my cost per acquisition if I do some simple messaging to them? If I use social effectively, if I use crowdsourcing, does it ultimately help me resolve call center or customer service inquiries that lead to cost reduction, right? Network lifetime value, we gave the example of Isabella Martins, right? And that she's a blogger. Obviously, social had a profound influence on her lifetime value. The important thing, once again, just in summary, is that we look at these channels no different than we look at the other channels, that we look at television no different than how we're looking at the internet today, and we think about opportunities in the real world, offline, no different than how we've been looking at them online, in applying best practices, bridging them together, and really beginning to manifest world-class customer experiences. And with that, I've got a plug. So this is my plug. We are working right now on a very comprehensive self-assessment tool that will enable you to answer a series of questions and understand where you're excelling in social media and where you're not. This is in beta, and so I'm giving this away to all of you because together we can understand who's doing what, and of course not going to share any individual brand's data, but we're producing a report to show where corporations are and who truly is market leading and and so that we can all begin to learn where those pockets of weakness are. So if you're interested in that, in obtaining the tool, and even if you don't send me the results, let me just say that just going through and answering the questions in the tool will likely allow you to consider possibilities that you perhaps wouldn't have otherwise. So I think there's value, like so many things, just in doing the exercise, which I'm going to need to do a lot more of after I digest a few more steaks while I'm in Brazil. So with that, I want to open it up for questions, and thank you guys very much for allowing me to be here and spend a little bit of time with you.
You talked a lot about identification, data mining, and processing, and how that creates tracks, and how it creates strategic possibilities to act upon that on behalf of providers, for consumers, or whatever. But how about privacy? How do you see that developing? We live in a world that mostly everybody already knows that either you program or you are going to be programmed.
That's right.
As that a sort of conscience grows within, not anymore the audience, but the community, the agents in the market, don't you think that's going to be fairly difficult to get there to the data?
Yeah, I think it's going to be critical. It's a great question, and it's very relevant. So, as part of my answer, I just want to get an idea of how you all value your privacy. So, this is going to be a series of questions. Quick show of hands. How many of you care about your privacy as consumers? I'd be surprised if we weren't all very concerned with our privacy. But here's the thing. How many of you actively today manage your privacy online? How many of you go into your web browser and delete cookies? How many of you set preferences with major providers like Google and Yahoo and others that you're using as your web browsers? Okay. We are...
How many of you use a fake IP address while navigating on the web? How many? Yeah. 1, 2, great. 3.
So consider
those are the people that are not going to be programmed.
Yeah. Consider the source, though, of our sample population here, right? I mean, we're all pretty savvy when it comes to, how data is being captured, how it's ultimately being used, and we're pretty in the know about, privacy in general. Most consumers aren't, but it's becoming more and more important to them. And there's a risk associated with being Big Brother and not providing that true transparency to consumers in terms of what data you're capturing, how that's ultimately going to be used to provide a differentiated experience for the consumer. And so to address the question in head on, transparency and accountability are vitally important for privacy moving forward. So what that means is, beyond just having a privacy policy, beyond just giving individuals an opportunity to manage their preferences as it relates to privacy, we need to begin to inform and educate them specifically on how their data ultimately can enable us to share the love, right? Help you, help me. And that's right now, delicate conversation for many brands, and so many are taking kind of a we don't want to be the first domino to fall, right, approach. Let's see what others are doing, and then many of us will fall. The good news is there are many people in the advertising community, because of largely, once again, legislation in different countries, that are forcing the issue. So for example, right now, for display advertising, there is an opportunity in the United States, whenever you see a display ad that's leveraging behavioral data, like the retargeting example I showed, there are large organizations that whenever you see a display ad, there's a little icon that you can click on to opt out of those ads moving forward. So principally, once again, we go back to our experience collectively. What's worked for the email channel? Well, I sign up, and if you don't respect me, you don't respect my privacy, you're not timely and relevant and offer a balanced value exchange, then I will remove myself from you having a primary relationship with me.
That leads to my next question. For how long do you think that email is going to survive? None of my kids aged from 10 to 30 use email.
Yeah.
They simply don't use it anymore. It's gone.
It's a great question. So People often look at me and think that I'm a lot younger than I am. I'm actually 34, but I bring that up only in context. I started a company called Inbox Marketing. So first, question the source. I'm obviously a huge proponent of email. At the time, it was the only mass media where you could truly engage in one-to-one marketing. But yet, my days are numbered, right? I'm dated. Is email going away? I like that question. No, it's not. Not right now, at least. Why? Because email, if you will, is the fingerprint of the internet. All those kids that don't use email anymore used email to sign up for Facebook, for Twitter, and it's ultimately how you log in and authenticate today. So is email going away? I think it's here to stay. The question becomes not so much, is the channel going to have lasting power or not, but ultimately, how is the channel being leveraged? And you're absolutely right about the kind of inferred or implied point in your question. For youth, clearly, email is not nearly as powerful as a channel, and we're talking generically here in terms of channel propensities and receptivity, as, say, new and emerging media like Twitter, like Facebook, other forms of social media, especially for the youth and kind of tweens, if you will, tween market.
In Skype and sharing sites, you don't need to attach documents. You send them through Skype and stuff like that. Well, I beg to disagree. I think email is dead. And I myself, I get 25,000 emails a day.
Yeah.
And my filters only let something like 200 to 250 through them. So all the rest of the 25,000 are dead.
Yeah.
Just dead bits.
There's a saying, there's a great saying, and that is we can agree to disagree. And there's another great saying, which is, I don't mind being wrong, right? I work with a great partner in my firm that says, guys, he's in sales. He goes, you guys are all smart. You like to be the smartest people. And I don't care about any of that blank, right? Because I don't need to be right. I just want to be rich. So my message to all of you is, right, again, don't believe the hype. Don't always follow the herd. Do what's right for your business. Once again, balance what's best in class with what's best for you. But do appreciate and respect that there is a marketing revolution occurring. There's a huge wave of change that's disruptive. And you right now, whether you're in Brazil or in Silicon Valley, have an opportunity to literally be behind the brands of tomorrow, because there is a lot of moving and shaking going on. And the last bit is, let's enjoy the ride a little bit. I know I work way too much, and I'm sure all of you do too. We're under huge pressure as marketers to balance incredible complexity. So you can't take it all too seriously. It's important that you get out and enjoy a caipirinha now and then. So I wish you all a very good rest of your evening, and thank you very much for being so great today.
Thank you.